The Holy Bible is basically voiceless on the topic of abortion, as has been the way of mankind throughout the history of your world. Even to the present day, interpretations and commentaries have been made to explain biblical passages. These interpretations do not always agree. Let us examine chapter 38 from the book of Genesis in the Old Testament. Abortion is not specifically addressed, but one may infer from this chapter the thinking on the subject. Tamar was the widow of the Lord slew the firstborn of Judah, because of his wickedness. Judah instructed his second son, Onan, to marry his wife's widow and bear a child in his place. Onan knew that the seed should not be his, and it came to pass, when he went in unto his brother's wife, that he spilled it on the ground, lest that he should give seed to his brother. The Lord was displeased by this, and slew Onan. Tamar was instructed by Judah to live with her father until Judah's third son was of age to father a child. In the interim, Judah's wife died. Some time later, Judah saw Tamar with her body wrapped and her face covered with a veil, and he mistook her for a harlot. He asked for the services of this harlot, and he said, I will send thee a kid from the flock. And she said, Wilt thou give me a pledge, till thou send it? And he said, What pledge shall I give thee? And she said, Thy signet, and thy bracelets, and thy staff that is in thine hand. And he gave it to her, and came in unto her, and she conceived by him. Upon learning that his daughter-in-law was pregnant out of wedlock, Judah ordered her to be burnt. Upon discovering the true circumstances of this pregnancy, Judah allowed Tamar to live. The point that I present here is that if Judah was willing to kill Tamar and the unborn child, does this not imply that the life in the womb was not to reach full gestation? Would Judah not want the fetus to be born before executing Tamar? Decide for yourself. Does this passage of the Old Testament condone the taking of the life of the unborn child? In 2 Kings 16:3, Ahaz, king of Judah, sacrifices his son. In Kings 2:21-6, Manasseh sacrificed his son to Baal. There are other references to sacrifices throughout the Old Testament. I have stated repeatedly, and I reiterate here, I do not read the minds of my creations, nor do I follow their actions in life. I simply conclude that if the taking of the life of a child as described in Scripture is accepted practice, then it rationally follows that the taking of the life of an unborn child is not an unspeakable crime. This is said throughout, deduction not observing any words to the contrary. Undoubtedly, other passages from the Old Testament can be used and will be used to prove the opposite. A passage from the Old Testament used to support this view that the life of the unborn child is to be respected and spared can be found in the book of Exodus. If men strive and hurt a woman with child, so that her fruit depart from her, and yet no mischief follow, he shall be surely punished, according as the woman's husband will lay upon him, and he shall pay as the judges determine, and if any mischief follow, then thou shalt give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. From Exodus 21:22-25. This is a holy book whose authors are men. As such, opinion will vary and is subject to interpretation. To say that a clearly defined Jewish position on abortion exists today would not be possible. Neither Reform nor Conservative Judaism adheres to the position that life begins with conception or that abortions are immoral under all situations. Orthodox Jews are not in accord with Reform and Conservative views as regard to abortion. There is no single Jewish position on abortion. The New Testament says very little about abortion. One may interpret passages in an attempt to argue Jesus' position on the subject, but references are vague. I will note that abortion is not a new debate, nor is it a new phenomenon. A variety of herbs to induce abortions and sometimes surgeries were performed even in the days of Jesus. In Athens and other city-states during the ancient Greek era, abortions were performed without moral outcry. In Greek and early Roman society, abortions remained illegal until the 3rd century AD. Even then, it was concern over depopulation of the noble Romans by Emperor Caracalla, and not the moral aspect of abortion that led to its being outlawed. If one bothers to research the subject of abortion, it will be discovered that the ancient texts describing procedures for inducing abortion by Cyrannus of Ephesus and the ancient Greek botanist Dioscorides still exist. None of these things speaks to the morality of abortion, but it does indicate that abortion has been practiced without condemnation since your antiquity. Your Roman Catholic Church strongly defends the sanctity of all human life from the very moment of Pope John Paul II said all human life is sacred, for it is created in the image and the likeness of God. Your recently deceased Catholic Pope was a wise and beloved man both within your Catholic community and beyond. I, as Creator, am the totality of forces in the universe. Man is not created in my image, but the Pope's reverence for human life is in total accord with my way. Let us look at some other religions that follow the teachings of Jesus Christ on this question of abortion. The 213th General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church in the United States debated the subject of abortion. Your Presbyterian Church in the United States has a basic policy on abortion which virtually supports with no reservations a woman's right to choose in cases of problem pregnancy. Your Presbyterian Church has been in opposition to abortion as a means of birth control and gender selection. The Church affirms that adoption is a preferable alternative to abortion. The General Board of the American Baptist Church closely reflects the word of this very difficult issue concerning abortion. They recognize that the Holy Scriptures are unclear on this subject, and passages can be interpreted one way or another. More importantly, the Board opposes abortion as a means of birth control. They condemn the violence directed at property and persons involved with the performance of abortions. Although the Board recommends direction rather than mandating policy, they counsel their members to preserve the sanctity of life. They also acknowledge the freedom of each individual to advocate for public policy on abortion that reflects his or her beliefs. This was modified by the Executive Committee of the General Board in March of 1994. The position of the Church of Latter-day Saints was articulated in 1976 by President Spencer W. Kimball. Abortion, the taking of life, is one of the most grievous of sins. We have repeatedly affirmed the position of the Church is unalterably opposing all abortions except in two rare instances, when conception is a result of forcible rape and when competent medical counsel indicates that a mother's health would otherwise be seriously jeopardized.